You need to step back and let the grown-ups handle this. Brad Weston said that to me in conference room B at the Pentagon 20 minutes into my presentation to Colonel Margaret Walsh and 3 Air Force acquisition officers. Guy walks in late from his Georgetown lunch, straightens his tie, and decides to school a 20-year Navy veteran on how defense contracts work. That was the moment I knew he had to go. My name's Jake Patterson. I'm 49, been working government contracts since I got out of the Navy 20 years ago. What happened in that Pentagon conference room was just the final straw in a 2-year nightmare of watching some MBA try to manage relationships he didn't build, in a business he'd never worked, with clients who could shut down our company with one phone call. But let me back up so you understand how we got there. That morning started normal enough. I was in my garage with my son Tyler working on my '67 Mustang. Kid's 14, plays freshman football, and Saturday mornings we work on the car together. I've been restoring this Mustang for 3 years now, teaching Tyler everything from basic maintenance to engine rebuilds. There's something about having your hands on real machinery that clears your head, you know? Tyler was helping me adjust the carburetor when my phone rang. Contract briefing at the Pentagon moved up 3 hours because some general had a scheduling conflict. The AN/FPS 132 radar upgrade proposal, $47 million over 4 years. I'd been working this thing for 8 months, knew every specification, every timeline requirement, every classified component. This wasn't just another contract presentation. This was the kind of system that tracks incoming missiles and keeps air bases operational. You don't wing it with PowerPoint slides. I started at Meridian Defense Solutions right after my Navy retirement. 20 years in the service, last 8 doing procurement logistics in places the Pentagon doesn't advertise publicly. Kandahar, Bagram, a few other spots that don't show up on tourist maps. Tony Meridian hired me himself back then, said he needed someone who understood how government contracts really worked, not just how they looked on paper. Those early years, I was everywhere. Defense trade shows in D.C., technical meetings at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, calls at 5 in the morning because someone at Aberdeen Proving Ground needed clarification on radar specifications. I learned which procurement officers had been there since the Clinton administration and which ones were rotating through on 18-month assignments. More importantly, I learned who made the real decisions and who just signed the paperwork. My security clearance is TS/SCI, top secret with sensitive compartmented information access. Took 3 years of background checks to get it. FBI interviews with neighbors I hadn't talked to in decades. Financial audits going back to college. Polygraph tests that ask about everything from drug use to foreign contacts. The kind of clearance that can't be transferred or rushed, no matter how much money you throw at the process. Brad doesn't have any clearance at all. Can't even access the SCIF where we store classified documentation, much less discuss technical specifications with procurement officers. Here's what most people don't understand about defense contracting. It's not like selling cars or office buildings. When Colonel Walsh calls with a question about radar integration timelines, she's not looking for a sales pitch. She needs someone who can walk her through technical specifications for a system that might be the difference between detecting an incoming missile and not detecting it. When the folks at Huntsville Army Depot want to discuss modification requirements, they need someone who understands both the technology and the procurement regulations that govern how we implement changes. For 17 years, I worked directly with Tony. Every Monday morning, we'd sit in his office going over pipeline opportunities, contract renewals, relationship maintenance. Tony understood that government contracts were about trust built over years. Golf games weren't just recreational, they were business development. When procurement officers needed someone they could count on to deliver technical solutions on time and within budget, they called me. When Colonel Walsh needed explanations of complex radar systems for her superiors, she scheduled around my availability. Golf was a big part of building those relationships. Not the schmoozing kind you see in movies, but the real deal. 4 hours on a course with a procurement officer, talking through technical challenges and timeline pressures. I played every other week with Major Rodriguez from Aberdeen, learned about his family, his concerns about budget cycles, his experience with contractors who overpromised and underdelivered. That's how you build the kind of trust that survives contract competitions and budget cuts. My Navy buddies tried to warn me about corporate restructuring. We meet once a month at Murphy's Tavern, same group for 15 years. These guys work at Lockheed, Raytheon, General Dynamics. They'd seen good contractors get destroyed by management consultants who thought military procurement worked like commercial sales. Watch your six, my old shipmate Rodriguez told me 6 months ago. Guys with MBAs think they can optimize everything, but they don't understand that some relationships can't be systematized. Then came the restructuring 2 years ago. Tony said the company was growing, needed fresh blood, modern management techniques. The board was pushing for someone with commercial experience, someone who could bring business discipline to government work. Brad came from commercial real estate, had an MBA from Vanderbilt, and a track record of managing large projects. What Tony didn't mention was that Brad had just lost a $40 million mall development project and was desperate for a fresh start. Strategic perspective, Tony called it. Someone who could streamline operations and improve efficiency. Brad's first week on the job, he asked me for a complete breakdown of our government business. I spent 3 days putting together a presentation covering 14 active contracts, 22 potential opportunities, and the relationship map I'd built over 2 decades. Names, contact preferences, technical specialties, procurement cycles, budget timelines. He listened for maybe 20 minutes, then asked if we couldn't just streamline everything and bid lower to win more contracts. That should have been my warning. The thing about Brad is he's never been wrong about anything in his life, at least not in his own mind. Commercial real estate gave him confidence that business principles could be applied anywhere. He looked at our government division and saw inefficiencies that needed optimization. He saw informal relationships that needed structure. He saw technical discussions that needed management oversight. What he didn't see was that Colonel Walsh had been requesting me specifically for technical briefings for 8 years. He didn't understand that when procurement officers called with classified questions, they needed someone with both the technical background and security clearance to provide answers immediately. He couldn't comprehend that government contracts weren't won by the lowest bidder, but by the contractor who could demonstrate competence, reliability, and understanding of military requirements. My wife Lisa and I talked about Brad that first night over dinner. She's got a financial planning background, works part-time helping families manage college savings and retirement accounts. She could see I was frustrated, but we've got Amy starting her senior year at Madison High already looking at colleges that cost more than my first house. Virginia Tech is $31,000 a year now for tuition alone. Add room, board, and books, you're looking at $45,000 annually. Tyler's playing JV football, needs new gear every season, and he's talking about football camps next summer that run $3,000 a week. Give him a chance, Lisa said, clearing the dishes. Maybe he'll learn how things work. But Brad never learned. Over the next 2 years, I watched him take credit for every successful proposal while staying as far away as possible from the actual work that made those successes happen. When Colonel Walsh called with questions about radar integration timelines, she asked for me specifically. When the procurement officers at Huntsville needed technical clarification on modification requirements, they scheduled around my availability, not Brad's. But in management meetings, Brad presented everything as his strategic vision coming to fruition. The worst part wasn't the credit stealing. It was watching him convince himself that government contracts were just like commercial real estate deals. He'd interrupt my calls with procurement officers to suggest efficiency improvements. He'd schedule his own meetings during times I'd specifically told him I was managing critical proposal deadlines. He started requiring that all client communications be pre-approved through his office, not understanding that when Colonel Walsh calls with a classified technical question, you can't put her on hold while you check with your supervisor. Last month, I overheard him telling Tony that the government division was finally running like a real business unit, as if the previous 19 years of steady growth and relationship building had been some kind of amateur operation. He actually used the phrase professionalizing our approach to government clients. This from a guy who couldn't get a visitor's badge for half the facilities we work with. The breaking point came during a golf game with Major Rodriguez from Aberdeen. I'd been playing with Rodriguez every other week for 6 years. We'd talk about his daughter's college plans, his concerns about budget cuts, his frustrations with contractors who promised the moon and delivered nothing. Brad decided to join us one Saturday, said he wanted to understand how I built client relationships. Rodriguez was explaining some timeline pressure they were facing on a testing facility upgrade when Brad jumped in with suggestions about streamlining the procurement process. Rodriguez just looked at him for a moment, then asked if Brad had ever worked government contracts before. No, but business principles are universal, Brad said. Military or civilian, it's all about efficiency and cost control. Rodriguez finished the round, but he was polite cold for the rest of the game. Afterward, he pulled me aside. Jake, your new boss doesn't understand how this works. We're not buying office supplies here. We're procuring systems that keep soldiers alive. When we ask for technical specifications, we need answers from people who understand both the technology and the regulations that govern how we implement it. That conversation bothered me for weeks. Rodriguez represented an $18 million testing facility contract that we'd been developing for 2 years. His trust in our company was built on my understanding of military requirements and my ability to deliver solutions that met their operational needs. Brad's approach treated that relationship like a sales opportunity that could be optimized with better marketing. Then came Brad's relationship management optimization initiative. He called a division meeting to discuss what he termed standardizing our client interaction protocols. He'd apparently decided that our government clients were getting too comfortable with informal communication channels and needed to understand proper corporate structure. Going forward, he announced, all client communications will be routed through my office first. We need to ensure consistent messaging and strategic alignment. I raised my hand. Brad, Colonel Walsh specifically requests direct technical discussions when she's dealing with classified material. Most of our clients need immediate answers to technical questions. Jake, that's exactly the kind of thinking we need to change. These are business relationships, not personal friendships. The client needs to understand who's in charge. The other engineers in the room were looking at each other like Brad had just suggested we stop using computers. Sarah Martinez, who handles our satellite communication contracts, actually laughed out loud. Brad, when the folks at Cheyenne Mountain call about satellite uplink problems, they need answers immediately. They can't wait for corporate approval to discuss technical solutions. Sarah, that attitude is precisely the problem. We need to establish proper hierarchies and communication protocols. I should have known right then that Brad had completely missed the point. Government procurement doesn't work like commercial sales. When Colonel Walsh calls with a classified technical question about radar integration, she's not looking for a sales presentation. She needs specific technical information from someone who understands both the system requirements and the security protocols that govern how we discuss classified material. My garage became my therapy during this period. Tyler and I would spend Saturday mornings working on the Mustang, and I'd find myself explaining more than just mechanical principles. See, Tyler, this carburetor has to be adjusted exactly right. Too much fuel and the engine floods. Too little and it won't run. You can't just guess at the settings because some manual says they should work. You have to understand how this specific engine responds to different conditions. Tyler's a smart kid. Like how you have to know what each customer actually needs instead of just giving them the same thing. Exactly like that. That afternoon, I got the call that changed everything. Greg Alpine, who runs Alpine Defense Solutions, our biggest competitor in the government space. We'd talked informally at a defense conference 6 months earlier. He'd mentioned they were looking for someone with my background, but I'd brushed it off. 20 years with one company meant something. Jake, I'm going to cut to the chase. We just lost our senior partner to retirement and need someone who can step in immediately. Full partnership track, equity stake, and every government relationship you bring stays yours to manage. No micromanagement, no strategic oversight, no MBA telling you how to do your job. Greg, I appreciate the offer, but 60% salary increase, signing bonus, and your own division. You'd report directly to me, no middle management. Alpine has the technical resources and manufacturing capacity to handle any contract you can bring us. What we need is someone who understands government procurement and has the relationships to make it work. I sat in my truck outside the office for 20 minutes after that call, engine running. Amy's college applications were due in 2 months. We'd been running numbers on college costs, and even with financial aid, we were looking at significant debt. Tyler was talking about engineering programs that would cost even more. Lisa had been running projections on our retirement savings, and with current inflation, the numbers weren't encouraging. The decision point came the following Monday. Brad had scheduled a meeting with Tony to discuss optimizing our government division efficiency. He wanted to consolidate all client relationships under his direct management, establish standardized communication protocols, and bring in outside consultants to modernize our approach. He'd prepared a presentation about leveraging synergies and maximizing operational efficiency. I listened to him present this plan for 30 minutes. Tony nodded along, asked a few questions about implementation timelines, seemed generally supportive of Brad's initiative. Tony's a good guy, built this company from nothing, but he's never worked government contracts himself. To him, Brad's presentation probably sounded like reasonable business strategy. Jake, Tony said finally, what's your take on this? I looked at Brad, sitting there with his PowerPoint presentation and his consultant recommendations and his complete lack of understanding about what made our government business work. Tony, can I ask you something? Do you know why Colonel Walsh specifically requests me for technical briefings? Because you're good at your job. It's because over 8 years, I've learned exactly how she likes information presented, what level of detail she needs for her superiors, which technical issues matter most to her specific programs. When she calls with a classified question about radar integration, I know whether she needs a 2-minute answer or a 2-hour briefing in the SCIF. That's not efficiency optimization, Tony. That's relationship management built over years of working together. Brad jumped in. Jake, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We can systematize those preferences, create standardized response protocols. Brad, I said, keeping my voice calm. Have you ever briefed a classified technical proposal to a room full of colonels? Well, no, but have you ever had to explain to a procurement officer why a timeline slipped and what you're doing to fix it while maintaining security protocols? Jake, you're missing the point. Have you ever sat in a secure facility for 8 hours working through technical specifications with people who can shut down your project with one phone call if you say the wrong thing? I don't need hands-on experience to provide strategic oversight. Yeah, you do. The room went quiet. Tony looked surprised. Brad looked like I'd just challenged him to a fight. Here's the thing about government contracts that Brad never understood. When Colonel Walsh calls with a classified technical question about the AN/FPS 132 radar system, she needs someone who can discuss frequency modulation, signal processing algorithms, and integration requirements while maintaining security protocols. When the procurement officers at Aberdeen need explanations about timeline modifications, they want someone who understands both the technical constraints and the federal acquisition regulations that govern how we implement changes. Jake, Tony said carefully, maybe we should discuss this privately. No, let's discuss it right here. Brad wants to optimize our government relationships. I want to know what happens when Colonel Walsh calls with a classified technical question and Brad can't answer it because he doesn't have clearance. I want to know what happens when the Aberdeen project timeline needs adjustment, and Brad doesn't understand the technical constraints that drive those timelines. Brad's face was turning red. Jake, I think you're having trouble accepting new leadership approaches. I'm having trouble accepting that you think 20 years of specialized experience can be replaced with a business process. That's when Brad said the thing that changed everything. Jake, let's be honest here. Government contracting isn't rocket science. Anyone with basic business skills can manage these relationships. You're not irreplaceable. The silence stretched for about 10 seconds. Tony was looking back and forth between us like he was watching a tennis match. Brad was staring at me with that smug expression he got when he thought he'd made a brilliant point. You're right, I said finally. Let's find out. I called Greg Alpine from my truck in the parking lot. Greg, is that offer still open? Absolutely. When can you start? How about next Monday? Send me your resignation letter by Friday. I'll have the paperwork ready. That night, I was back in the garage with Tyler, working on the Mustang's transmission. The kid's getting good with tools, asking smart questions about gear ratios and hydraulic pressure. Amy was inside working on her Virginia Tech application essay. Lisa was running numbers on our new financial situation, trying to figure out if we could make the career change work. Dad, Tyler said, why does that guy at your work think he knows more than you? Kids notice more than you think. Some people think that having the right degree or the right title means they understand how everything works. But there's a difference between knowing about something and actually knowing how to do it. Like how I can read about rebuilding transmissions, but I still need you to show me? Exactly like that. I typed up my resignation that night. 2 sentences. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position at Meridian Defense Solutions. Thank you for the opportunity. I printed it, signed it, and put it in my briefcase. Friday morning, I walked it into Tony's office. He looked up from his computer, saw the letter, and his face went pale. Jake, what's this about? Brad's right, Tony. I'm not irreplaceable. So you won't have any trouble finding someone else to manage the radar contract or the Aberdeen renewal or the Huntsville proposal that's due next month. Jake, wait, let's talk about this. I've taken a position with Alpine Defense Solutions. They seem to think my experience has value. I cleaned out my desk while Brad was at lunch. 20 years of files, contact lists, and relationship notes went into 3 boxes. The contract database stayed on the company server, but the real relationships, the ones built on trust and years of reliable service, those walked out with me. Technical specifications that I had developed, procurement timelines that I'd negotiated, security protocols that I'd established with individual clients. Brad got back as I was loading the last box into my truck. He watched from the parking lot, but didn't say anything. I think he was starting to understand that maybe he'd miscalculated. Now here's where we get to that Pentagon meeting I mentioned at the start. Colonel Walsh had specifically requested this briefing on the ANF PS-132 radar upgrade proposal. $47 million over 4 years, involves classified technology integration, and requires someone with both the technical background and security clearance to walk through the implementation timeline. The system processes incoming radar signals at frequencies between 1 and 18 gigahertz, with signal processing capabilities that can track up to 200 targets simultaneously while distinguishing between aircraft, missiles, and weather phenomena. I'd been working this proposal for 8 months, knew every specification, every potential integration challenge, every procurement requirement. The timeline was critical because the Air Force needed the upgrade operational before the next budget cycle, and any delays could push implementation back 2 years. Conference Room B has that oak conference table you see in military facilities, American flag in the corner, portraits of past Air Force chiefs lining the walls. Colonel Walsh has been doing acquisition for 28 years, came up through the Air Force Academy, knows when someone's trying to snow her. She was there with Major Rodriguez from Aberdeen and Captain Thompson from Wright-Patterson. These aren't people you impress with buzzwords. They've seen contractors come and go, and they know the difference between someone who can deliver and someone who just talks a good game. I was 20 minutes into explaining the technical integration requirements when Brad walked in. Late from his Georgetown networking lunch, straightened his tie, and decided he knew better than the guy who'd been working defense contracts for 2 decades. Actually, Colonel Walsh said when Brad tried to take over, we specifically asked for Jake to present this. The technical requirements are quite complex. Brad smiled that MBA smile. Ma'am, I appreciate Jake's input, but I think you'll find my strategic overview will be more valuable for your decision-making process. Major Rodriguez and Captain Thompson were looking at each other. These guys deal with contractors every day. They know the difference between technical competence and corporate positioning. Mr. Weston, Colonel Walsh said, does your security clearance allow you to discuss the classified components of this proposal? Well, no, but the high-level strategic implications. Then Jake needs to continue his presentation. That's when Brad said it, right there in front of everyone. Jake, you need to step back and let the grown-ups handle this. The room went dead quiet. You could hear the air conditioning humming, the sound of papers rustling as Major Rodriguez set down his pen. Colonel Walsh looked like someone had just insulted her personally. Captain Thompson was staring at Brad like he'd lost his mind. Here's a guy with 0 defense industry experience, no security clearance, and no technical background, telling a 20-year Navy veteran to let the grown-ups handle things in front of 3 military officers who'd been doing procurement longer than Brad had been working anywhere. I kept my voice level. Brad, perhaps we should discuss this outside. No need. I'm sure the colonel understands that sometimes we have to manage our technical people carefully. Colonel Walsh stood up slowly. 28 years of military service, and she gets lectured about managing technical people by a guy who couldn't get a visitor's badge for half the facilities we work with. Gentlemen, I think we're done here. Jake, please call me directly when you're ready to discuss the actual technical specifications. Without interruption. After they left, Brad tried to spin it like the meeting had gone well, that he'd established the proper chain of command. I just packed up my laptop and walked out. My phone buzzed as I drove to Alpine Defense. Text message from Colonel Walsh. Jake, need to discuss radar project timeline. Please call when convenient. I called her from Greg's office while we were signing paperwork. Colonel, it's Jake. I should mention that I'm no longer with Meridian Defense. Long pause, I see. Are you still available to discuss the technical requirements? Yes, ma'am. I'm now with Alpine Defense Solutions. Jake, I'm going to be direct. Brad Weston called me yesterday about taking over the radar project. He doesn't understand the technical specifications, doesn't have the clearance to access half the documentation, and frankly, after our last meeting, I don't have confidence in his ability to manage this contract. I understand, ma'am. I'm recommending to my superiors that we transfer the contract to Alpine Defense with you as the technical lead. Are you prepared to handle that? I looked at Greg, who was grinning. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. The domino effect started that afternoon. Major Rodriguez called about the Aberdeen testing facility project. $18 million over 3 years, and he wanted to know if Alpine could handle the technical requirements that Meridian apparently couldn't manage anymore. Captain Thompson followed up about a preliminary discussion for Wright-Patterson, potentially $25 million in radar calibration systems. Tony called me at 6 o'clock that evening. I was at home, helping Tyler with his algebra homework while Amy worked on her college applications at the kitchen table. Jake, we need to talk. This is bigger than whatever happened between you and Brad. Is it? The radar contract is worth $47 million over 4 years. Colonel Walsh says the deal is off unless you're managing it personally. That's unfortunate. Don't play games with me, Jake. 20 years should count for something. You're right, Tony. 20 years should count for something. But your restructuring put Brad in charge of relationships he didn't build, in a business he's never worked, with clients who don't know him and don't trust him. Brad's got an MBA from Vanderbilt. He understands business. Government contracts aren't business, Tony. They're relationships. They're security clearances that take years to get and can't be transferred. They're technical expertise that comes from actually doing the work. Brad doesn't have clearance for the contracts he's supposed to manage, let alone the technical knowledge to answer Colonel Walsh's questions. Long pause. What do you want, Jake? I want Brad to understand that some people actually aren't replaceable. This is about ego. This is about competence. The next morning brought more cancellations. Huntsville suspended negotiations on a radar calibration project worth $12 million annually. Wright-Patterson canceled their preliminary discussions. Each cancellation came with the same message. Primary contractor relationship terminated. By noon, Meridian had lost $92 million in active and potential contracts. Greg called me into his office with a grin I'd never seen before. Jake, your old boss is on line 2. Wants to discuss a partnership opportunity. Greg put the call on speaker. Tony's voice filled the room, tight with barely controlled panic. Greg, I'm calling to discuss a subcontracting arrangement between Alpine and Meridian Defense. What kind of arrangement, Tony? Alpine would handle all government contracts and relationships. Meridian would provide administrative support and facility access. Revenue would be split 70-30 in Alpine's favor. I leaned forward and spoke into the phone. Hello, Tony? The silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds. Jake, I should have known you'd be part of this conversation. Actually, Tony, I am this conversation. Every government relationship you're trying to license to Alpine belongs to me personally. The clients made that very clear. Jake, be reasonable. Meridian invested 20 years in your development, and Brad spent 2 years explaining how easily replaceable that investment was. Turns out he was wrong. Greg took over. Tony, here's our counteroffer. Alpine Defense will consider acquiring Meridian's government division assets, office space, equipment, and administrative staff for fair market value. All contracts and client relationships stay with Jake and Alpine. That would eliminate our entire government division. Yes, I said. Just like Brad eliminated it last week when he told me I wasn't irreplaceable. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my new office at Alpine Defense when my old colleague Steve called with news from Meridian. Brad got fired yesterday. Board meeting lasted 8 hours. Tony's taking direct control of what's left of the government division, but there's nothing left to control. What about the other employees? Most of the engineering staff transferred to Alpine with the asset acquisition. Administrative teams stayed with Meridian to focus on commercial projects. About half their previous revenue base, but at least it's stable. And Brad, here's the thing about Brad. Word around town is he can't get interviews. Defense contractors talk to each other, Jake. Everyone knows he's the guy who burned down a $92 million business because he didn't understand how it worked. Steve paused. Colonel Walsh called Tony directly yesterday. She wanted to make sure he understood that this wasn't personal against Meridian Defense. She said you'd always been professional and that Alpine was lucky to have you. That was kind of her. She also said something else. She said Brad's behavior in that Pentagon meeting was conduct unbecoming, and that procurement officers across the DoD had been briefed about the situation. Jake, they blacklisted him. Officially. Guy's never working government contracts again. That evening, I was back in my garage with Tyler, installing new brake pads on the Mustang. The kid's getting good with tools, asking smart questions about hydraulic pressure and friction coefficients. Amy had gotten her acceptance letter from Virginia Tech that afternoon, partial scholarship included. Lisa was inside running numbers on our new financial situation. Mortgage would be paid off 2 years early at this rate. Dad, how come Mr. Weston thought he could do your job better when he didn't know anything about it? Tyler's question made me stop and think. Some people think that having authority means they understand everything under their control. But there's a difference between managing people and actually knowing how to do their work. Like how Coach Peterson knows football strategy, but he can't actually throw a spiral better than the quarterback. That's a good analogy, but even Coach Peterson played football in college. Brad never worked government contracts at all. My phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez. Jake, heard about your move to Alpine. Aberdeen board approved the testing facility contract. $18 million, 3 years. Looking forward to working with you again. I texted back, Roger that. Colonel Walsh had called earlier to discuss accelerating the radar contract timeline. We had the technical resources and manufacturing capacity to deliver ahead of schedule, and the Air Force was eager to get the new systems operational. It felt good to be working with people who understood that some relationships, some expertise, some experience really can't be replaced by a business process or a PowerPoint presentation. At Murphy's Tavern the next Friday, my Navy buddies wanted to hear the whole story. Rodriguez raised his beer to Jake for proving that some of us really aren't replaceable. Sometimes the most valuable lesson is learning that respect earned through competence and dedication always outlasts the authority that comes from a corner office and an expensive degree. Brad learned that lesson the hard way. As for me, I learned something too. After 20 years of building something valuable, it's okay to take it with you when you go. Amy starts at Virginia Tech in the fall. Tyler made varsity football as a sophomore. Lisa and I are looking at retirement properties in the Shenandoah Valley. Turns out some people really aren't replaceable after all.